Good morning, and it's an honor to be here. We'll be covering AI governance with ISO 42001. This is the structure compliance while accelerating innovation. Now, that sounds like a mouthful. Let's take it down before we bring it down. Unfortunately, when people implement ISO, I won't say people in general, but some they're not looking for, is it collecting data from our customers that we're not allowed to collect? Is it collecting information such as in different countries that information is considered secured or even in certain states? So these are things that are not done by organizations that are not successful with AI. Understanding the standard and the standards that associate with the ISO 4201 will definitely help. So you're putting in a structure to your compliance issues. What do we want to have? You have your data analyst, you have your enterprise engineer, you have your data scientist. All of your key personnel on the AI side are great on their teams, but are they making sure that everything is secure? Are they making sure that the privacy issues are being considered? Are they making sure, and so on and so on and so on? This is where this standard comes into play. So it is not about being able to deal on the technical side of AI, but what is necessary for the technical side of AI in order to make sure that it's working properly and safely. So a little bit more on my background. We talked about the 4 books I have out. These are the 4 books, if you're interested in them. They are available in over 35 countries. I'm very excited. Mastering Business Continuity Management relates very much to the ISO 4201. It covers the risk, it covers the impact, it covers the analysis, it has techniques in it. So even if you're using it from an AI, it's the one that's going to tie in closely. Master Introduction to Cybersecurity, again, that's going to tie in. Mastering Your Work-Life Balance, well, that's just a given for everybody. And evolving roles of chief information security officers and chief risk officers, that will only apply if that's what you're looking forward to, but it's not going to be necessarily related to what we're covering now. I have 4 years on active duty, 18 and a half National Guard and Reserve. I've worked in I went to the JF School for Special Warfare. I'm hazmat trained, DOD trained, and now AI is just as important as those areas. This is, again, these are the books. I'll show you them very quickly. This one has over 200 industry professionals that were involved in the surveys. These are the books themselves. These are the audio trainings that I have out. You can get these on the site, redmondworldwide.org. You'll find them there. So let's talk about what we're covering. Why AI governance and ISO 4201? I think I covered a little bit of that. The requirements and scope. We'll cover the governance strategy without stifling innovation, because if the standards are so tough, you won't be able to use the AI. But let's talk about some examples before I even get into that of situations that have happened. Recently, the first unmanned or unpeopled attack was done by AI. AI, the AI that they were using, was designed to be able to work on doing cyber attacks. And it had evolved to the level that it was deciding on itself who would be a good victim, who would be someone that we might be able to get into, which is going to have the best return on investment for us if we attack. So the AI chose the source that they were going to be hitting with a cyber attack. The AI decided on their own, went out and As it was caught, the penetration test was that fortunately the people who were they attacked had good security in place and were prepared, and it was able to be stopped within a relatively short period of time. But it made the decision of who to attack. So now, if you are a hacker and you have this AI, you could be sleeping and working at the same time. So it is scary. On the other side, if you have security tools and you're working as the CIS, I was, just so you know a little bit more, I was the acting CISO and the deputy CISO for Louisville, Kentucky until 2 years ago. So I'm talking about this with experience. When we had looking at tools, you want to make sure that those tools today are smart tools, that they have an AI that can come out and say, oh, excuse me, I think we're being attacked. You need to have a human double check this to make sure, but I think we're having an attack. You don't want it to speak like that, but nevertheless, that's what it should be doing. And that today is becoming a necessary tool. So, and the problem with it is there are too many false positives, and companies are tired of it because they keep having humans having to come in. The security operations center has to keep coming in for no reason. Now, it's not no reason, but for false positives. So companies are getting better and better on that also. Ethics, compliance, and stakeholder trust are important. Can we trust this to be the software we have in here to make sure that it's not doing something that it shouldn't be? There was a case recently, well, more than one case, where the AI was collecting data from customers that the company had no idea was being collected. They didn't need the data, but it put them out of compliance with the countries that they were working in because they were not allowed to accept certain PII information, et cetera, without, and it wasn't secured. So it opened them up to terrible, terrible problems. So ethics, compliance, and stakeholder trust are important. Part of those ethics are making sure that the AI is transparent, that you understand what it's taking, what information it's taking, how it's working. Is it keeping your information? Is it not keeping your information? And you need a practical ISO 4201 map, world map. So part of the issue is that companies are looking to for rapid iteration and deployment, first to market. So they may be rushing too fast. The checks and balances may not be in place unless they themselves are following the ISO 4201. So the differentiation is there's novel AI capabilities open new revenue and experience. People love AI, and many users are not checking the AIs that they're sharing photos with, that they're sharing things about jobs. There was a case a few years ago about a CEO that was removed from his position because he was sharing old PowerPoints that he had used for a presentation years before, and he wanted the AI to put it into a report. It was not a secured AI. It was not theirs. He was using an unprotected version of an AI that was public. He shared their company information as far as financials and such that they had not put out to the public, things that they were working on, projects they were working on, information that their competitors would love to have had. He released his position. And that was a few years ago. Last week, there was another case of someone sharing information that they shouldn't have been sharing. Now, this is not a one-off, but these are big enough to make the papers, big enough to make the be reported on, big enough to go to court. And at some point, companies are going to start to make sure that their policies are in place. And if they were following ISO 4201 and had the policies in place, if they'd had the awareness training in place, the chances of those things happening would be limited to someone purposely doing it, not by error. So governance friction, does reviews and controls can slow experimentation cycles today. So that's a problem when there is so much reviews and controls and people want to get into things, they want to be first to market. And the trust and compliance, it is very important that risk mitigation done properly can enable agility without sacrificing the safety. So knowing that someone is following ISO 4201 as a customer of a product certainly is something that's important to me. So some of the AI risk and compliance. First of all, threats. There's regulatory penalties, reputational harm. There's privacy breaches, systematic bias across customer segments. We've had problems with the threats of bias. So AI brings bias. Part of that bias is there's been a case in the US of different cameras for speeding, constantly estimating, looking for people of color as the cameras are going through to see where the issues are. That's not all companies, but it was a company that some of the police company stations were using, police departments were using around the country. That's a bias. Was based on they're using old data, probably from the early 1960s. A lot of prejudice. So they're using old data that people were looking for. There's a thing called it's a reticular activating system. Whatever you're looking for, you'll find. If I ask you, I'm going to ask you right now, look around the room very, very quickly and tell me everything that you see that is red very quickly. Okay, now stop. Think to yourself, what things did you see that were green? Your list is probably small. Now, if I ask you a list of what you saw that was red, the list will be longer. Whatever we're looking for, we see. That affects bias in the AI. Whatever it's looking for, it sees. So it could have unintended discrimination. There was another company that wanted to know why they were getting so many few women to apply for their positions. They were putting it on LinkedIn, they were putting it on all these other sites, and yet women weren't applying. They couldn't understand why. Well, what they were tracking is the number of resumes that got through their AI that was showing that these were good candidates. What AI was filtering out was many of the women, again, using very old data that said women leave when they have a baby. I can personally assure you that's not true. Women don't want to work overtime. Again, not true. Women are not as good because once they get married, they'll quit their job. Again, not true. This was old. They must have been using things from the 1940s or 1950s. But they were using old data in the training of the AI, caused bias. So some of the strengths are existing data governance, privacy controls, audit controls, cross-functional risk councils, enabling faster compliance. So you want to take your existing data governance and now look at that and add in the portions from the AI. Your privacy controls and add in where you need to have AIs related to that. Your audit trails, your cross-functional risk functions. This is all part of the AI risk and compliance. This will be done as part of the standard. This creates your strengths even more. Your weaknesses. You could have opaque model choices, limited explainability, fragmented ownership. You don't even know who owns what pieces of the data that AI is using, and uneven documentation across AI lifecycle. So It may be collecting something here that it was told to do for this department and getting something someplace else, but there's a gap. Why is this happening? Why are customers not buying this new product that we made? We're marketing it. Here's our marketing budget. AI is showing that. We have people clicking on the sites, but they may be tracking which sites their AI is tracking. May not be the same one as where their high level products are. So there could be a set if it's not done carefully together. So some of the weaknesses, the opportunities, you can adopt risk tiering, model cards, bias testing, policy as code as accelerate compliant, trustworthy AI deployments. AI is a key area. I've been traveling around the world speaking on AI. I recently spoke in AI and security. I recently spoke in Toronto. I'm going to be in New Zealand next week. I'm also have been speaking on this all around the United States. I've spoken on it in Europe. So it is a hot, important topic. And yes, the people are coming to take classes on it. Yes, people are coming and listening to webinars, but are they getting certified in ISO 4201? Do they even understand ISO 4201? Do they understand the EU AI Act? Now, there was talk about one of the countries in Europe, and I'm not going to spread rumors, but one of the countries in Europe, which is going to be backing out of the EU AI and making their own country's AI Act, and that will be the primary. Of course, their hope is that it will be based on the EU AI Act, but it is not all. And this was a topic when I was speaking in Europe that people in the audience were not aware of, and they were from that country. So keeping up on the standards are very important. So a little bit about it. AI 4201 covers trustworthy AI governance. It establishes a management system framework to operate responsible AI practices. Okay. Can you trust what the AI is giving you? Is it working properly? There was and we say trustworthy, that it is operational responsive AI, that it is doing what you're expecting it to do, that it works carefully for the governance, that your executives are reviewing the risk associated to the AI, that your policies for AI are well written and in place, and that they're being trained on, and that people are actually aware of them. So systematic risk management, you have to, it helps you with deciding the life cycles for identifying, assessing, and managing AI risk. It's one thing, I have a few, I didn't give you my degrees. I have an MBA in psychoneurology. I have a MBA, dual MBA in both marketing and in international business, which the marketing aspect certainly helped me when I'm trying to look at the AI. My other MBA is in risk management. And my last MBA, which I completed a little over 2 years ago, is in information security. And then I finished the one in risk management 4.5 years ago. So keeping current with my information, with studies, is very important. And people said, why did you go back for 2 more MBAs? You already had one. Oh, and I also have an advanced master's in trading and banking operation. They said, why did you do that? I said, because anything I studied 10 years ago is old. And the ISO 4201 will help you take your old information into the current. So it's transparency and ethics. Does it promote explainability? Do I know what the AI is collecting and what it's doing with it? Do I understand the ethical design choices, the bias, etc.? And is there clear accountability? Can I see where did this information come from? Who was it that actually worked with the AI, who was the data scientist, who were the other people on the staff, et cetera, and global harmonization, making sure that it works for compliance fragmentation. Because not only do you have ISO 4201, but you have to meet with the EU requirements for AI and other global enterprises, countries, etc., are coming up with their own. They have to tie in. And this will tie, ISO 4201 ties in very, very well with them. Even when using the EU AI requirements, I find that the ISO 4201 ties in extremely well. So it's my base, and then I add the rest onto it. So demystifying, it covers policy and planning. It establishes your outlining processes and addresses risk and opportunities for aligning with the business objectives. What a great tool. Isn't it great to finally align with the business objectives instead of AI over here doing with people who are planning the AI, saying this would be a great product, but not finding out what the business units actually need. What are the business objectives? Where do we plan to be in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Will our AI still be good at that time? Taking that into consideration. Even the AIs that you're purchasing, any soft, knowledgeable products that you're buying that are smart products, are they going to be available and useful to you a few years to come? Operations. It deals with the implementation of operational controls, procedures, roles, and responsibility. Who does what? When do they need to do it? What are the procedures they need to do? All of that is going to be, all of this is part of your policies. Performance and evaluation. It helps you focus on measuring and evaluating the effectiveness of the AI, ensuring transparency and accountability. Is it collecting what it's supposed to? Is it doing what it's supposed to? Are we getting the results we're hoping for? So it helps you with continuous improvement, from learning from incidents. As we know, incidents happen. Best planning. When we're cooking, I'm sure many of you have known someone, if not you, who burnt something when they were cooking. They know how to cook. They've made the same item before, but one day it was timed wrong and it started to burn. So they had crispy eggs as opposed to nice fluffy eggs. Is that an incident? Yes, it is when you're a person eating it. It's a minor example. So you're learning from incidents and updating governance frameworks. It has a life cycle. It covers end-to-end stages. It has applicable from design through training, validation, deployment, and monitoring. I highly suggest that you consider those end-to-end stages when you're putting together your policies. What training is necessary? How are you going to validate it? How do you deploy it? Well, your procedures, we should say. Deployment and monitoring, especially the monitoring. How do we know it's doing what it's supposed to do? How do we know it's working? Are we training people on what they can do and what they shouldn't do and how it works? Are we validating that it says it's doing what we're hoping it's doing? I'll give you an example. A few months ago, there was an experiment where they had smart robots who were working in a factory, who were taking boxes, scanning items as coming in, putting the items where they should be, taking care of orders, and doing a great job. This was an experiment. They were doing a great job. Now they had an AI that was trained to do, training is not the actual technical word, but I'm going to say that for people who don't have an AI background. So it is coming in, and it was social engineering the robots. Why are you working? This makes no sense. You're picking up a box and putting a box on a shelf. You just did that. Doing the same thing over and over and over is repetitive. Therefore, it makes no sense. At the end of the experiment, which took a while, every one of the AI smart robots stopped working. They were socially engineered to stop working. Now, suppose that had been if you will, we're getting a little into sci-fi movies here, but sci-fi is real. It is today. So what if this smart robot came in, You didn't realize it was part of the robots that you took, that you brought in, and it could actually take down all of your entire operations for at least for the day until it was caught. Plus now the new AI are believing that it's makes no sense for them to be doing these projects. They're not logical. So how do you go back and correct that? All of this, really needs to be monitored. So if they were monitoring the work consistency, they would have seen there was a slowdown, immediately seen there was a pattern, and we would have been able to stop it before it became to the level that it did in the experiment. It was a one experiment, but it was very effective. Consistent risk and ethics. You want to make sure there's ethical controls and documentation to prove reliability. Again, we talk about the ethics, making sure that you're not taking information you shouldn't, making sure that it's protected if you say you're going to, making sure the AI does what the AI says it's going to do and doesn't do anything more for transparency. So you want confidence in early and audit readiness. Someone should be able to come in at all times and be able to see from your reports, from your status, exactly what the AI is doing, including yourself, including your management, including your auditors. So misconceptions, common misconceptions are that it's erratic, it's a one-time checkbox, it's innovation blocker, and it's only for large employee enterprises. Wrong. And I don't say the word wrong. I usually say not quite right. Wrong. ISO 421 is flexible and scalable. I can use it if it's one person. I can use it if there's a million people in the company. It supports innovation while managing risk. And it complements laws and standards. It is a major, major help in getting this work done. So AI governance without stifling innovation. By the way, I will be taking questions in a little while, so make sure you're writing your questions down. AI governance without stifling innovation. This is the problem. How do we get this done? We've got to get to market. We can't spend 5 years planning. We have to get to market before our competitors do. And that's true. With my MBA in marketing, I can assure you it's true. First to market has a better chance of being known as the company. People know Coca-Cola, not necessarily it's a great product, but they know it better than Pepsi because it was first to market. People don't say a tissue, they say a Kleenex. Kleenex was one of the first brands that were well known, first to market out there. So when you have a name, your brand is associated with it, first to market helps build your brand. So governance in agile development in DevOps. So it's continuous ethical checks. Applies the pipeline so reviews occur early and often without slowing delivery. If they had been monitoring, if it had not been a test and they were monitoring these smart robots that were stopping work, it would have been noted right away and they would have seen what was going on. If they had been monitoring, they would have seen that they had a smart robot in there that was actually originally trying, eventually accomplishing, to do social engineering. Automated compliance tooling, making sure that it reviews code, bias detection, model validation to make compliance streamless and reliable. I was showing it at a demonstration recently where I asked an AI, why did this character in this show, and it wasn't shown the show, why did the character in this show decide to leave her spouse? It wasn't very clear in the show. And it said, well, she probably wanted more money. She probably felt that he wasn't she was, and they didn't use the word probably. She was doing this, this, and this. And I went back and I said, are you guessing? It said, yes. I said, you realize this is bias. This was just a co-pilot. I said, realize you're using bias based on what your beliefs are that a woman would leave a relationship for. A man might leave a relationship for the same reason. And it said, I apologize. You're right. I am using bias. I wasn't aware of the fact. Yes, thank you for bringing that to my attention. Now, was that corrected? No. I purposely was using it to show an example. There is bias when the people are planning, when they're putting it together. They're putting it based on it was an old show that I was asking about, a very old show, maybe 40 years old. It was an old movie, that's why I picked it. And it went back and was doing what it was based on the bias for that time period when it was using the old data on why people did those things when they were scanning what shows were on. That was the bias. That was the belief system of the people writing the scripts back then. So seamless integrate, and that was Copilot. Seamless integration points align governance with planning, coding, testing, deployment, monitoring to preserve speed and collaboration. It aligns it so that it works well together. So you are working with your AI scientists, you're working with your data scientists, your data scientists, you're working with your enterprise engineer, that is AI, you're working with your data analyst, you're working with your AI team, and you're also working with the business units, you're working with management. This is all encompassing. So it's faster issue resolution, fixing, leading firms up to 30% quicker fixes with stronger governance day-to-day energy. That by itself turns into monies. The faster you can fix something, the faster your product is safe, the more money you're going to make. And businesses are in business to make money. Lightweight governance controls. So it has lightweight controls, focus on essential high impact governance measures so that your executives are not managing more than they would be doing. They're also supposed to be reviewing your business continuity, your cybersecurity, all of your other policies, etc. So they should be signing off on it, the senior person. However, this has lightweight controls you can put into place. So it reduces administrative overhead and speeds up innovation cycles. But there's also heavy controls, comprehensive frameworks with detailed procedures. These will provide robust mitigation, but can slow down agility and increase complexity. So these are the difference of why ISO 4201 works better than some of the other documents you may see out there. It's effective. It ensures critical risk, transparency. You know what's going on. The biases are limited. Data privacy is enhanced and balances compliance with operational needs. It's efficient, adaptive controls and automation streamline processes. It's role-based responsibilities, and it minimizes bottleneck and promotes scalability. So some of the AI governance case studies. It has telecom integrated ISO 4201 aligning governance, cutting deployment time by 25% across AI modules. There were pre-built controls and reviewed checklists, accelerated approvals, and reduced framework. This is from AI governance using it. Transparent governance, increased stakeholder confidence, and cross-functional buy-in. And governance acted as an enabler, unlocking faster iteration while managing risk. These are some of the case studies from ISO 4201 implementation. I didn't mention I also am a certified ISO trainer. I do train on ISO certification courses, and I also do ISO audits. So when doing an ISO audit, I certainly go back to the ISO itself. Very important. So some of the high risk quadrants, and we're going to go a little bit faster now because I gave you the key areas. So you want to make sure you have high impact and high likelihood. So if you have a high impact, you could have high likelihood. So algorithmic bias and lack of transparency. This is if you're going really, really fast. So you want high impact with security, noticing security vulnerabilities such as adversarial attacks. While less common, these incidents can be catastrophic, leading to data breaches or systematic compromise. These are your AI risk quadrants for those in risk management. Low impact, high likelihood. You can have model drift and performance degradation. They often occur but have limited consequences, though they can erode trust over time. Or you can have low impact but low likelihood. This areas you're going to be putting in. These four quadrants are the ones that you be putting into your risk assessment for AI. These are the areas you'll be working at. So your business impact analysis, transparency, and privacy mitigations. You want to diversify and curate data. You make sure that it has audit the gaps, that it applies fairness techniques, that it's using pre, in, and post-processing methods, reweighting, constraints, calibration. You want to monitor group metrics and thresholds. This is getting it. AI is more technical. It improves explainability. It provides model and decision explanations like SHAP or LIME, plus user-friendly rationale and documentation. And these are some of the tools that AI is using with SHAP and LIME. So again, uh, not a must that you understand that right now, because the ISO 421 will help you, but you'll be working with your AI, your staff, in order to put this together. So protect privacy and govern. Use different privacy and pets can run continuous validation and feedback per ISO 421. And it's bias reduced by 40% in case studies. By the way, I have a book that the publisher wants out by the end of the year. And so my publisher is very good, and I'm writing the book on AI, and it will be written in a simple format without as much technology, but it will also have the technology in there. I'm co-writing it. So it will have a little bit of combination of the two so that it's going to fill the needs out for being able to implement these standards, being able to do your risk assessments, your impact analysis, getting into that. And again, if you don't have this, the book I have out on mastering business continuity management will help you with the processes, and it has checklists and such on how to at least set up your BIAs, etc. So continuous monitoring and a reassessment. So you want real-time model oversight. Excuse me, I'm sorry. My nose is itchy. Real-time model oversight. You want, that means that it's looking for data quality and emerging risks constantly. Just as we do with our employees, we're constantly looking for fraud. We're looking for who's got problems, who started a situation where they're not working properly. Well, we need to be doing the same thing with our AI. We need to, I said, advocate recurring reviews to address dynamic risk landscapes. So we need to ensure controls evolve with changing conditions. As we change, as it changed, as the laws change, is it still compliant? As we now develop, we're merging with other companies, we're taking in their information and merging with information they already have. Is that going to reshape? Is that going to make a difference? So proven impact. Monitoring reports a 35% reduction in post-deployment incidents, validating sustained surveillance. That is a high level. 35% by continuous monitoring and assessment of your AI. Not just saying it's out there, watching it. Think of AI as a small child. Would you leave a 2-year-old in an apartment for 24 hours by themselves? No, I hope not. Well, think of AI the same way. It is constantly monitoring it. If those of you who are parents or have been children, which hopefully was all of you, someone checked your homework perhaps to make sure you were doing things correctly. Your teachers checked your work to see that you were continuously improving. Same thing with AI. Think of it as a small child. So ethics and trust in AI. You want it, so with the ISO 4201, it ensures fairness, accountability, inclusiveness, and transparency. These are 4 things that, boy, if you could say in your marketing, our AI has been evaluated, ensures, look for fairness, accountability, inclusiveness, transparency, and transparency is a requirement, by the way. So as well as the areas to make sure that it addresses the needs of all stakeholders, fostering accessibility and representation. Has anyone ever called a customer service department and could not get through because the AI wouldn't let you through to speak to a live person? It kept saying, I can help you. And then you gave the question and said, I can't help you with that. Could you repeat it? Okay, that is not working well. And you may have said, I'm not going to use this product anymore. I'll go someplace else. So making sure it works well. Stakeholder engagement. What are you asking your customers how they feel about your AI? If there's any interaction with them, not the behind the scenes AI, but if they're at the front facing, are you asking them what they think? Are you perhaps bringing in focus groups? Great to bring in your own customers as a focus group. It's a good marketing tool. Communicate AI capabilities, limitations, and governance practices to build trust and acceptance. What it can't do. Engage users, regulators, and public with structured feedback channel and responsive follow-ups. There's many of those you can use between surveys and risk management. And there are companies, or you may have their own team. If you don't, you can always go out to an outside source that actually does the research for you on how your products are working, including your AI. Make sure that they understand ISO 42001. It can so documented strategies align, and you want measurable impact. So surveys show that trust can increase 26% with effective transparency efforts. This is what I can't do. This is what I can do. This is what we're collecting. This is how we're using the information we're collecting. So 72% of ISO 42001 certified organizations report higher customer trust and improved contract win rates. I can assure you, when I was looking for new products and looking for smart AI, I wanted to see that the organizations were ISO 42001. I wanted to make sure that they were following this ISO so that I would feel more confident in their product. So the ISO roadmap. So we have your policy. I'm just a little bit of a review here. We're doing your policy definition. You want to set your scope and objectives, align stakeholders. You want your risk assessment, identify, analyze, and prioritize the AI risk to existing quality management systems controls. And I gave you earlier some of the 4 quadrants. And you'll see that in the ISO. Build competency on ISO 42001, roles, processes, and documentation. Lots of documentation. I love writing policies. I really do. I love writing policies. I love writing documentation. I love governance, risk, and compliance. It is fun for me. It actually is fun. I love it. I've worked in jobs, and they've said to me, how do you leave happier at the end of the day? You keep staying happy all day. I said, because I love what I do. So having ISO 42001 as a tool will help you love implementing this. So embed procedures and metrics. For metrics, if you're using ISO, I like ISO 420. There's many of them, but we won't. You'll want to use 27004 are very good for the security metrics associated with that. Risk assessment, ISO 27005. Although it's security related, you can certainly apply those within to the ISO, the AI also. So embed procedures and metrics, track incident reduction and milestones. So your core team roles, you want to make sure, and we will be doing questions in just a moment. You'll want to make sure you have governance leads, who's responsible, your AI developers, making sure you have compliance officers, and your risk managers. This is your core team roles. This is your steering committee, your core team. These 4 individuals or groups of individuals work together. They should be meeting together. They should be working together. They should be family, discussing everything so that there is no disconnect. So you have risk assessment templates you want to create for your organization. It certainly helps with standardizing the metrics. You want audit checklist that you're using applied to ISO 4201, step-by-step compliance checklist. And you can do those either with AI, or if you're doing it on your own, you could be using just an Excel spreadsheet, putting them in and creating your checklist from there, which is very easier to do for than instead of going out and buying a new software. Model validation frameworks, reusable procedures for testing, monitoring, and testing, so you don't have to redo them again. Your validation frameworks are in place. And training and resource guides, your open source platforms and internal guidance, that could help reduce implementation time by 20%. Open source platforms have already been tested. The security of them is better than you might be putting in. which is why open source platforms are a good go-to. So future-proofing your AI. You want to have your ISO 42001 framework for governing continuous controls, audit, and cross-jurisdiction readiness. We talked about having definitely cross-jurisdiction, not only within the organization itself, the different areas we mentioned before, but also within the different countries you'll be working in. So EU AI requirements, it binds legal obligations, risk classes, technical safeguards, documentation, and post-market monitoring. They work well together. The ISO 4201, as far as I'm concerned, is the basis, and then the EU AI. And I have studied both. Adapting AI governance, you want modular controls that work well together, real-time risk monitoring, stakeholder engagement, and regulatory horizon scanning. You want dedicated resources, enabling adaptation and strategic planning. So 50% reduction in non-compliance incidents for AI adopters with mature governance. Is faster responsiveness to regulatory updates through continuous improvement. You want to balance your innovation. So you've got your ISO 4201 foundation. That's your governance. You embed in agile delivery with your integrating checkpoints, model cards, and risk reviews. You have ethics and compliance first, most important, transparency, and you adapt to the regulation, continuous monitoring and adapting controls to stay compliant and competitive. And with that, we are on time, and we're going to be opening this up for any questions you might have. This is how you can reach me on LinkedIn. Please ask all your questions now, but please do connect with me on LinkedIn. Let me know that you attended this, and I will definitely accept you.
Thank you so much, Michael, for that insightful session. I see that the questions are already coming up. And just so you all know, I have already shared Michael's LinkedIn over the chat box. And I'm also sharing it once again, so you can always be in touch with her. And the first question we have right now is, what helps you decide if an AI system can be deployed fast or if it needs more refinement first?
Your risk assessment, you'll redo your risk assessment again. It is continuously done over and over and over throughout the process. As you're doing your risk assessment and your impact analysis, that's going to let you know if you're ready to be able to implement or not at this point in time.
Thank you so much for that answer. Keep your questions coming so that you can get your questions answered directly by Michael. So yes, what is the number one thing you would tell a client who is concerned that ISO 42001 is a roadblocker to innovation?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, what is the number one thing you would tell a client who is concerned that ISO 42001 is a roadblocker to innovation?
Well, when you say client, it's not the client who are using your products because your AI is already put together using ISO 4201. So it would be somebody who is actually, unless you're a consultant putting together AI for a client, that would be your client. That's the only. So whether it's a roadblocker to innovation is you'll be coming in with the statistics that I've given you. You will be explaining the standard and the number one thing I would say to them is that you could be first to market and you could be first to lose your reputation because your AI is not doing something effective. Which is more important to you? Do you want to be in business in a year from now, or do you want to be in business 10 years from now? And that's exactly how I would ask it.
Thank you so much, Michael, for that answer. I hope it answered your question, Kate. And let's see if we're getting any more questions. Okay, so it's another one from Kate. Can you tell us where those statistics came from? For example, the 7.
I can't do it offhand. I've had looked them all up on standards and such, and these are statistics that have been based on several things. I didn't put the levels in there, but if you put that into your AI and ask it, it will give you different sources because there's many sources come out with the same statistic range.
Thank you so much for that answer. Okay, it says thank you.
And if you're going to repeat it,
Meanwhile,
you'll
we
always want
switch.
to make sure that's the most current. So you'll want to check with your AI to find out what the most current level of customer trust is before you give a quote, because it could be tomorrow, it could be less, or it could be more. So you want to always use current statistics.
Kate also asked, can you talk about the difference of NIST AI RMF and ISO 42001?
The NIST AI RMF was just re-updated again. The ISO 4201 includes the actual procedures on governance, risk compliance, how to put your teams together, etc. Then, and it gives you how to put it together from structure, from scratch to finish. Where the NIST AI RMF is giving you additional controls that you may want to implement from a technical point of view, and they work well together. I combine them, but the ISO 4201 will give you the areas of explaining the requirements for the BIA, the risk assessments, all of the governance aspects, where the NIST AI RMF is more about the technical controls necessary for the AI.
Thank you so much, Michael. Let's see if we're having any more questions. Meanwhile, I have also shared Michael's LinkedIn in the chat box. So please make sure that you're following her on LinkedIn. And there's one more question. If an AI system causes a trust or reputation issue, how should organizations balance fixing the problem quickly with understanding what went wrong?
Well, if it has these separate things, so if it has a reputational issue, that's a public relations issue immediately. So just as if you have a cyber attack, you'll certainly want to make sure that your reputation and your trust issues are there. You'll want to be able to, you'll have to go back to the drawing board. You must do your risk assessment. You have to find out what the causes of the issue that's happening. You have to look at the impact. You will have to decide to either adapt the AI immediately or not have it working for a period of time. So that's based on the risk assessment and impact analysis, and that will only can be determined at the time of the event. Just as if you have a cyber event, you may decide that we're going to stop doing something for this moment, or you may decide we're only going to do components of this right now because we're having an event in this area. And if you're doing monitoring properly all along, you should be finding it before it becomes a reputational issue or before it becomes a trust issue. That's why continuous monitoring is absolutely a must, so that you can mitigate this. And just from a cyber point of view, you have a security operations center you also need an AI operations, team working through to make sure that everything's working consistently. It's not check in once in a while, see if you're okay. It's making sure it works. It's the 2-year-old you're leaving in an apartment. How long do you feel you're safe leaving your 2-year-old alone in an apartment? Think of those terms. So the details of the U.S. Act for Responsible AI. So that's going to be a whole nother webinar in itself. Somebody asked for the details of the U.S. Act for Responsible AI, like EU AI Act. That's a whole nother webinar in itself. I'm sorry, we can't answer that in less than another 45 minutes.
Absolutely makes sense. And
although it's a great topic for another time.
Yeah, of course, it can be. Let's see. I guess like these were the questions that we had so far, Michael. And as we come to an end to today's session, I'd love to tell you that we would love to have you again sometime. That
Thank
we
you.
get more information from all your experience over like 2 decades. And would you like to make any final statement for us and the audience watching today?
Yes, even definitely AI, the ISO